All right, seventh grade science students, day two of the experiment. Right? And we're going to look at the egg. Obviously, we're going to do some measurements again. And you're going to put in some data in your data table like you did the other day. You're going to be writing a hypothesis for day two. You're also going to be making a little description of what the egg looks like. Uh, I'd like to talk a little bit about the stuff in the background today. I'm gonna talk about what's in that first paragraph. It says the purpose of this lab is to observe how substances can pass through different membranes, and then it's comparing different membranes to the cell membrane. It says the cell membrane is the protective outer layer of an animal cell that is selectively permeable, and that means that it lets some substances enter the cell, but not others. So things like water, right? H2O, oxygen, which is just two oxygen atoms attached to each other, O2, carbon dioxide, which is CO2, those things pass through the cell membrane fairly easily, right? The cell needs to get rid of water or take in water, it goes right through that membrane. Oxygen goes in, goes out. Carbon dioxide goes in, goes out. It says while protein, glucose, and other larger molecules must be helped across the membrane. So those don't go across as readily, and that's part of the protection also of that membrane. Not any molecule is going to be able to just enter your cells. There's certain things your body doesn't want to have enter your cells, so it's designed that way for a reason. Certain things need to go in and out of there easily, and that's selectively permeable, right? So in other words, it's letting certain things through and not other things, right? It's being selective. Permeable means it has tiny openings and those things pass through. It's not magic. There's tiny openings, right? Okay, so today is day two, right? It says we're going to pour off the vinegar and carefully remove the egg. We're going to use the data chart to record the circumference and mass. We're going to place the egg in a cup and pour just enough syrup, the corn syrup, to cover the egg. All right, so after 24 hours in the vinegar, and sorry that I didn't record in horizontal, but there you go. You can see still a lot of bubbles around the egg, a lot of foamy kind of residue at the top, floating on the top. And if you look at it from the top there, you can see that little reddish pinkish stripe. That's actually where there was the ink on the, not ink, but whatever they marked the egg with. Eggland's Best, it was the EG. Now I've washed off the egg, I've got it out of that residue, and look what it did. The vinegar did a number on that shell, didn't it? You can see some residue of the shell left, but what it exposed is a membrane. There's a membrane there. And you can see that the shell is kind of, well, you can't see it, but you can, if you can feel that, it's a little bit powdery on the outside, but you can see the yellow, which is the yolk in there. Let's see what the mass is. Look at that, 75 grams. That is a big gain in mass, guys. We need to record that. All right, guys, so the mass after 24 hours is going in right here, right? So after the egg's been in there for 24 hours, taking the mass, putting in 75 grams again, and let's make that bigger. G a little smaller. Okay. And this is what we're also going to enter. I'm just going to hit copy so it comes out the same size in here. 75 grams in there because that's going to be the beginning mass for our corn syrup, right? Okay, so now we're going to do the circumference. I'm wrapping the piece of yarn around the center of that egg. Try to get the best estimate I can on this circumference. I'll lay it down on the ruler on the centimeter side, and my finger's in the way there, but let me move that. And about 15.7 centimeters. We're going to go with that. All right, so in the circumference was 15.7 centimeters, and I already typed that in to see if it would fit. And so I'm just pasting in what fit there. It's hard to get that in the same size as the other one because I've got the decimal. So that's our circumference after it was in the vinegar. It's also the circumference we're starting off today with, right? So we're going to paste that right in there too. And let me see, stretch that out a little so that it'll fit. All right, so how many of you predicted that the egg would be able to do this after 24 hours in vinegar? Wow, look at that. We got a bouncy egg. It's a lot like a full water balloon right there. Next step is to put it in the cup, and we're going to be pouring corn syrup over it. Corn syrup's used for a lot of different things. Usually it's baking or making candy, something like that. It's sweet because it's derived from corn. It's the same kind of stuff that they use to sweeten a lot of different things. Um, it's basically your table syrup without the artificial flavoring and coloring. It's very sticky stuff. Okay, so now we are going to write that description and the hypothesis for day 2. It says describe how the egg is different today than it was yesterday when we placed it in the vinegar. That's a pretty easy description, right? Just a sentence or two would be good enough right there. And then your hypothesis, if I place the egg in corn syrup for 24 hours, then, and then you just tell me what you think is going to happen. Is it going to be it's going to have a hard candy shell on there? Is it going to get bigger, smaller, change colors? What do you think is going to happen? I'm going to give you about a minute now to type those two things in there. All right, so I'm going to pour the corn syrup over the egg. Notice I'm not using that same glass cup. And when we're in the lab, usually I don't use the beaker because that corn syrup is so sticky and messy that it's really hard to clean. So after we're done with this day and I take the egg out, I'll probably just throw that cup away. I don't want to have to clean it. It's just a plastic cup and I'll just get rid of it. So we're just pouring that corn syrup. Notice how thick it is. Like I said before, used to sweeten things. I'm sure you've read labels at one time or another. High fructose corn syrup, stuff that's used to sweeten a lot of things these days, candies and sodas and cookies and all that. That's basically what that is. How it kind of sticks to my finger there as I try to push the eggs trying to float up. All right, I wanted to come back to the data table for one more thing. And it says draw arrows to show what is happening. So the egg in the cup there up at the top, uh, going from this mass to this mass is not a magic thing, guys. Going from this circumference to this circumference, not magical. The shell was dissolved, right? So what did it expose? A membrane that's underneath that shell. And that membrane is allowing the water molecules to go through. And that's how you got the gain in mass here. Right? So how would we draw arrows? I think the easiest thing is to, here's one that says select line. There's arrows. And I would just draw them like that. Let's do another one. And one more. So those arrows are representing the water molecules passing through that membrane. All right. We'll talk more about that tomorrow.